And good afternoon. I'm Dan Rice, live in Chopper 2 over the upper portion of Manhattan here around Washington Heights. You're looking down at the Harlem River Drive. We're just south of the George Washington Bridge. And as you can see, another brush fire has broken out here in Manhattan. Now we look down at the smoke coming out of the Highbridge Park area. We can tell you this is a 2-alarm fire. It's consumed, approximately 5 acres as we speak. There you can see a thick, heavy smoke just hanging over the trees. Our pilot, Max Kluver, he's going to circle around the fire in just a minute there, but what we can show you before we do that is down here on the Harlem River Drive. You can see where some of the fire units have set up down here on the highway itself. We have seen folks climbing up the side of the hill there, trying to get a handle on the fire. How it started, we don't know yet, but we can see this is one area that the fire department has set up. Now, Max, if you don't mind, we'll just start going around the fire here and give you different perspectives of the fire. Of course, Harlem River Drive, traffic-wise, that's being affected as the firefighters continue to work on the situation from the east side of the park. When we come up here by Edgecombe Avenue, and we should see in just a few seconds there some more flashing lights up here. You can see over there by the playground, Highbridge Park. You can see firefighters setting up the trucks here as well. You're in about the 160s, lower 170s. If you are familiar with this section of Manhattan, that's where the firefighters are set up there trying to get water to the fire. Now we come around over here to the west side, and you'll see that smoke drifting over towards the Bronx. We're not that far from Yankee Stadium, if you know this area of New York City. But we'll come back down into the woods here, the wooded area. We do see a couple of vehicles that are parked inside, but it's up over here towards the top of your video. That's where you see the fire burning. And again, with a lot of the times what we've seen with all these fires around the tri-state area, the crews will set up a fire line trying to create a perimeter for the fire. They'll burn out any fuel that the fire may have to spread with and try to contain it to a certain area. Now, we can't say that's the situation at this point, but again, you can see those flames down here on the north end of the park, and you can see just how intense the fire is over here. And again, the way the wind is blowing, we do see that smoke heading out over the Harlem River, going over towards the Bronx. There you see Yankee Stadium. That's the direction that the smoke is blowing towards. But again, we'll come back over here and keep an eye on the fire itself, the fire apparatus down there on the Harlem River Drive. We zoom back in to where you see those intense pockets of fire that are burning right now on the side of the hill. If you look at the bottom of your video down here, you see how the firefighters have had to climb some of the hill here to get up to where that fire is. You see them knocking away some of the brush to try to, again, take away the fuel of that fire, to try to help contain it, try to help get it under control as best as they can. You see the firefighter in the center of your video there just pulling the hose up to where he is at. And again, they'll go through the mountainside up into the park to try to get that fire taken care of as quickly as they possibly can. Don't forget, it was not that far from here, just in the last week or week and a half ago or so, where we saw a brush fire burning at the top of Manhattan, up at the Inwood Hill Park area. Now, again, we're looking down at Highbridge Park, south of that area, and this is where we see the fire burning at this point. Right now, as I said, we do not have what the source of the fire is, how the fire broke out, but again, they do have areas of the park that have caught fire. And again, this is what we call Highbridge Park. You can see the water tower towards the top of your video there, over towards the top right-hand side. And excuse me a second, we're actually flying through the smoke. And you can see how that smoke, it is a thick smoke, is drifting down the Harlem River. And again, it's about 5 acres is what we're being told at this point that are on fire down here in the park. And we come back here for a second to the highway. Again, it's at southbound Harlem River Drive. You do see the fire units that are sitting there, and also the exit from 155th Street. That's also shut down as the FDNY tries to get a handle on the situation there. You see EMS is on the scene as well in case there are any injuries as a result of that fire. Again, none reported at this time. And we'll come back around here towards the top of the hill, back towards Edgecombe Avenue, and that's where the other firefighters have set up the trucks there, and they're running lines into the hillside. Of course, we've had this drought going on here so many days. Hopefully, at the end of the week, we'll see some of that rain come into the tri-state area finally, but because of the low humidity, because of the lack of rain, Everything very dry, very susceptible to fire, and this is what we've been watching for the last couple of weeks all around the tri-state area. The large one up there on the New York and New Jersey state border, the Jennings Creek fire. We've had a couple of fires down towards central Jersey, down in the Jackson area, Lakewood yesterday, another fire had broken out there. So it's a big problem for all of our firefighters throughout the tri-state area. This one being the latest situation they're trying to take care of over here. Again, this one right now being called a 2-alarm fire. And this is one of the more intense fires we've been able to see a lot of the times during the daylight. All we see is the heavy smoke kind of lingering over the areas of brush that are on fire. But here with this one, we can see a definitive line of fire that is burning around the trees here in Highbridge Park. And you can see those firefighters again having to work their way into this rugged area there. It's very hilly, very rocky. And there we see the firefighters now with the hoses engaged, just trying to cool down the rocks there, trying to get this fire extinguished as best as they can to keep it from spreading up north. Of course, we are just about half a mile away from the George Washington Bridge. This park runs up towards the ramps for the GWB off of the Harlem River Drive. So clearly they want to keep this fire contained to where it is right now. It doesn't spread any further. And we can actually bring the camera out a little bit more here and give you an idea of the bigger picture there. And again, you see that smoke. And I'm just going to bring the camera over to the right. And you see Highbridge Park, the water tower there. That's the George Washington Bridge. And you can see those trees run towards the Trans-Manhattan Expressway, the roadway that takes you over to the GWB. So not a big impact on the George Washington Bridge yet, unless you use the Harlem River Drive. If you're coming off of the bridge, going up towards it, you are going to come across the fire department activity here. They are at the moment still letting traffic come off of the GWB. So that's a good news for commuters. But again, at some point with the way they're trying to fight this fire, if it happens to come down the hillside, down towards the Harlem River Drive, they may try to detour traffic away from the Harlem River Drive. But for now, it seems to be contained more in the hilly area up towards Edgecombe Avenue and Amsterdam Avenue. So we'll keep an eye on those areas as well. And again, if you are just joining us here on our streaming channel, you can see we have a fire that is burning in Manhattan. This is Highbridge Park. It's in the area of Washington Heights. This is over by the Harlem River Drive. That is the road that you see down below. The car is down there. It came in within the last hour. It's now a 2-alarm fire. You can see about they're calling it about 5 acres, but there are a couple of different spots that are on fire here. Figure somewhere in the 160s up to the 170s. That seems to be the area where this fire is currently burning. And again, we come back over here into the trees about halfway up the hill or down the hill, depending where the firefighters came from. You can see the different pockets of fire that are burning on the hillside. Even the trees themselves are on fire. If you look close enough there in the middle of your video there, that's how intense, how dry everything is really, which is what is causing a lot of these brush fires to be breaking out all through the tri-state area. And we see the FDNY just trying to cool down the different parts of the park there, trying to make sure that the fire doesn't spread any further than it already has. And obviously just trying to keep those rocks cool, a lot of debris and brush on those areas as well. We'll swing the camera around and kind of give you an idea of the different areas that they're trying to attack this fire from. And again, you see some of those pockets of fire coming down towards the Harlem River Drive. And obviously they want to contain it just to the wooded area down there. But firefighters down here on the drive, they've been setting up their fire equipment down here as well. They've been over here on 155th Street, going back towards Coogan's Bluff. The fire hasn't quite gotten that far yet. That heavy smoke now just kind of drifting its way to the south. And again, if you are in the area, let's say Harlem, East Harlem on the Upper East Side, over in the South Bronx, you will smell the smoke from this fire in those areas, and that is what you are smelling if you do smell it down in those sections of Manhattan. And again, this is a fairly intense fire in certain spots. Like I said, we can see over here, not only is the brush on the ground on fire, but even some of the trees as well. So definitely a difficult situation for the firefighters here at the FDNY, as all these brush fires have proven to be. It's going to take a lot of manpower to try to get this under control. But again, this is one of the ones where we've actually been able to see the fire burning through the brush down there. Like I said, for the last couple of weeks when we get over these areas in the daytime, You just predominantly see all the smoke lingering over the areas, and it's usually at night where we start to see the flames through the smoke when all the daylight goes away. But this one giving us a view of both the smoke and the fire there to give you an idea of just how tough it is for these firefighters. And you can see them walking through the park there, not a very well-defined trail there, so it's not that easy for the firefighters to access these areas, to be able to try to get to the fires as best they can. But again, we have seen the different vehicles inside the park over here. There's a fire truck behind the trees there on one of the trails. You see all those lines that are stretched out there. Again, 2 alarms. Takes several apparatus to be able to try to fight the fire, and I believe that's around 120 firefighters will be called to the scene, if I remember that correctly. Again, we'll let you take in some of the sights here for a second there and just see how that fire continues to work its way through the Highbridge Park section of Manhattan. So like I said, several firefighters down here, not just the firefighters as well, but you do see the ambulances down here. Again, at this point, there are no reports of any injuries, but they do have the FDNY out here with their ambulances just as a precaution. Obviously, it's a very tough situation for the firefighters themselves as they try to figure out how to contain that fire and to keep it from spreading. And you can see a very rocky area of the city there, so a fairly intense workout for the firefighters as they try to climb through the woods down there to try to get a handle on the different pockets of fire. Here we see a couple of firefighters trying to wet down the brush and try to get the fire out as best as they can in this section. And if you're looking at a map, if you know the area here, Highbridge Park, this is in between Edgecombe Avenue, where it merges up with Amsterdam Avenue on the west side. You have the Harlem River Drive on the east side, and this is predominantly right now in the 160s and the 170s as the fire continues to burn the brush that is in this section of the park. And again, it works its way down the hill here, and that's why you see the firefighters on the Harlem River Drive trying to get a better handle on the situation down there. Interesting to see that what looks like a burned out tree laying on the side of the highway. Can't tell if that's from this or if that's just an older tree that may have fallen down from the park, but you have the fire truck parked next to that. Firefighters getting their equipment together, trying to support the other firefighters that are up here in the park. You see not that far from the Harlem River Drive, another little bit of smoke coming out of the woods and some flames down there as well. And that's one of the harder parts of fighting these brush fires, is the way these different pockets of fire do just spark as they are working on one section. And again, not quite clear what kind of winds we're working with out here, but you can see that smoke being kept somewhat fairly close to the ground and working its way to the south, a little bit of the southeast. So with that wind, if any of the embers get caught up with the wind, it could spread the fire to other sections of the park. So you would expect this fire to possibly, if it is going to keep burning, spread down more towards the Coogan's Bluff area, but right now it seems to be fairly contained at the moment, like I said, to this area in the 160s, a little bit of the 170s as well. But again, the toughest part for these firefighters is more of the terrain, trying to get up to these areas and trying to get as much of the fire out as they can. You can see that pocket of brush burning up there, and they're just now getting the hose on that, so they'll try to get some of these flames out as well. Just going to talk to our pilot, Max Kluper, for 1 second. Max, are we able to circle around, or do we have too much air traffic? Yeah, if you don't mind. I'd appreciate that. So Max is going to move the chopper for us, and we'll try to show you the different sides of the fire there to show you just how big the battle is for the firefighters there to try to get this out as best they can. And they don't appear to be doing that bad of a job right now as far as some of those flames that we saw when we first went on the air with everybody. You can see the smoke coming off the rocks there, but we did have a lot of the brush that was on fire on the rocks, around the rocks. So when we come back around this fire, We'll see if there are still lines of fire burning throughout the park there, but you can definitely see the smoke still coming out of the hillside. And again, as you join us here on our streaming channel here, CBS News New York, you can see we do have another brush fire here in Manhattan. This is Highbridge Park. It's on the east side of Manhattan, up in the 160s. A little bit of the 170s also is the size of this fire. It's about 5 acres, we're being told. A 2-alarm fire at this point being put out by the FDNY. And that is the Harlem River Drive that you see over on the right side of your video there. We're going to come through that smoke again 1 second. You're going to see the exit for 155th Street. That's where the ambulances are lined up there underneath the smoke. And that is closed down as they continue to work the scene over on the Harlem River Drive. This section over here behind the Polo Grounds, this is Coogan's Bluff at the moment. Doesn't appear to be affected by the fire other than some smoke coming through the area. And that down there is Edgecombe Avenue. That's the other side of the fire. This is the west side of the fire where we see some of the apparatus set up over there on Edgecombe as they try to bring some of the hoses into the park down there and try to get it from both the west and the east side. You see on 67th Street where those young people are walking through the park area there. And of course, we have seen the firefighters have gone into the park to try to get a handle on this side of the fire. We've seen the stretcher hoses throughout there. And we'll come back around over here and get towards the north side where just a few minutes ago we saw a fairly intense line of fire that was burning. And now we just see more smoke than we do fire at this point. So hopefully that's a good sign that they're getting a better handle on the situation. And of course, look on the sidewalk there and you can see people standing by the fences there trying to get a better view of what's going on inside the park. As you see some of the firefighters walking up the street down over there. We do see a hose or two that are draped. I'm sorry, Wanda, what was that? Oh, okay. It's an area of 100 by 100 is what our assignment desk, Wanda Prizanzano, is telling me in my ear here. So that's the size of the fire. That's how they're classifying it now at this point. We can see on the north side here, just a few minutes ago, we were showing a fairly large line of fire that was quite visible from up here. And at this point, just more smoke than fire and flames. And that's a good sign that the firefighters are starting to get a little bit of a handle on this fire. By no means considered contained, but as you see more smoke rise and less flame, hopefully that's a good sign of making progress there. You can just get an idea of how hot this fire is, the intensity of the fire. You can see the smoke coming off of the rocks there as they continue to pour water on the rocks as well. And we had seen the fire reach up into the trees. It looks like a lot of that fire has been extinguished as well. And we try to look through the smoke for you there. And you can just see some of these firefighters just trying to get as much of that brush that is in the line of fire as wet as possible to try to help get the fire to die down. But again, even in the short amount of time that this has been going on, you can see just how much smoke has been created by the fire inside of Highbridge Park. And like I said, for the folks who are watching in Manhattan and watching in the Bronx, that smell that you might be smelling at this point, if you're up in the Harlem area, East Harlem, Upper East Side, over in the South Bronx by Yankee Stadium, all of that is coming from this section of Manhattan over here just off of Washington Heights. And to give you an idea where the other fire was about a week or so ago, top of your video, that is Inwood Hill Park. That's the one that we saw firefighters attacking over there by the Harlem River where it meets up with the Hudson River. This one, obviously, a little further south than that. Again, at this point, no word on what caused the fire to break out. But again, you can't ignore the dry conditions that we've been suffering here in the tri-state area. Again, hopefully with rain on the way at the end of the week, that'll help try to help the situation with the different fires that have been burning around the tri-state area. Of course, the biggest one is the one that they continue to work on up at the New York-New Jersey state line by Greenwood Lake. They call that one the Jennings Creek Fire. That one still Firefighters up there working on that situation, but definitely better contained now than it has been at any point. We had been able to see the smoke earlier throughout the last week or two, and at this point, as I look out my window, I don't see the smoke from up there, so that's a good sign for there. But again, we hope that the rain that comes at the end of the week will help situations like this one from happening again, at least take away the risk of the fire dangers that we've been having here throughout the whole tri-state area. And again, I can see the tower ladder going up over the park. That'll help the firefighters get an idea of what they're working with there. If they can help with the tower ladder off of, looks like that's still Edgecombe over there. And one of the things we've seen them using at most of these fires is the drone, trying to put a drone up to be able to see where they need to concentrate their efforts. Don't see the drone in operation yet, but I'm sure at some point they'll be bringing that out as well. And there we see that tower ladder over here on Edgecombe Avenue. Starting to see some of the fire tape, police tape going up on the street there to try to keep some of the spectators away. And we bring the camera back out and we can look down at the Harlem River Drive. But again, for the commuters in our audience, you still have traffic moving on the Harlem River Drive, but that will be a problem as we get closer to the evening commute. You can see the firefighters are set up there on the southbound side, trying to attack it from the east side of the fire. So as we get further into the evening, you'll see that traffic backing up onto the GWB, I would imagine. Right now it's just going up onto the ramp there that comes off of the bridge, off the Trans-Manhattan Expressway. And of course the traffic that's trying to get up to the GWB, that's going to be a bit of a hot spot for folks who are trying to get up to the George there for the evening commute. You can already see it backing up through the Polo Grounds. But again, it's more important that the firefighters be able to attack this fire as best they can. Again, there's the ramp for 155th Street. We see more ambulances arriving on the scene. And again, you have the normal dangers with a fire like this, or you have smoke inhalation. You have falling debris through the area here, so they have to be careful of that with the firefighters. But also, it's a very hilly, rocky terrain, which is going to be more taxing on the firefighters as they try to get a better handle on the situation here in Highbridge Park. Again, it's an area of about 100 by 100 is what they're telling our newsroom that they're working on this fire. You can see under the tree line there as they try to continue to get water on the brush down there to try to help extinguish the fire. See, they have to actually stretch the hoses over the fences to be able to get into the park. You see the trucks there with their hoses all attached to the hydrants, different hoses attached to the trucks. And again, we've been over this fire, I would say, for about the last 30-35 minutes. When we first arrived, there was a line of fire that was working around the woods. Not clear if it was the fire spreading or if it was the firefighters using it as a method of containment. But those flames that we saw when we arrived on the scene have pretty much been extinguished. You don't see the fire down there burning at this point. What we see is the smoke emanating from all that brush on the floor of the park. And of course, that's the biggest problem for the firefighters, is just trying to make sure that that brush doesn't fuel the fire any more than it has. You see a small little pocket of fire. Looks like the remains of a tree that's burning itself out over there. And again, you see the firefighters walking through this wooded area. And again, it's a hilly, rocky area. Not an easy area for the firefighters to access, especially for the ones down here on the Harlem River Drive. We did see some of the firefighters working their way from the drive up through the woods, pulling hoses up that way. We see one of those firefighters working their way down the hillside now, getting back to the Harlem River Drive. Okay. Thank you, Katie. Talking to our producer back in the CBS Broadcast Center. We can see that smoke still coming out of the park here. And again, what are we at, Max? About 1,000 feet? Okay, so folks, we're at 1,000 feet, and even up here, you're getting whiffs of that smoke as it comes up under the helicopter. So it's a fairly intense smell that unfortunately we've all become accustomed to with the various fires around here. But for those, again, in Upper Manhattan and over in the South Bronx, maybe a little more intense than you've been used to. This fire, the smoke seems to be blowing out towards Yankee Stadium in the South Bronx. We'll bring the camera back up. We're into the helicopter. I forgot about that part. Kind of see Yankee Stadium peeking out from behind our skids there, our landing gear. But that's the way the smoke is blowing back towards the Bronx. And again, you can see behind us there, it's kind of staying along the Harlem River there. So you can figure East Harlem, Harlem, Upper East Side, you might get a more intense smell of smoke than you've been accustomed to. And at this point, we're being told it's a 2-alarm fire that they're working on up here. You can see the tower ladder all set up. And again, folks, we'll keep this video coming to you until about 4 o'clock. And, of course, we'll get the chopper ready for our evening newscast. And, of course, we'll have more coverage with this coming up at 5 o'clock on the CBS News New York at 5. In the meantime, you can see the flames down there still burning in some of that brush on the lower section of the park. This is closer to the Harlem River Drive. See the fire trucks down there. Just a few of the pockets of flames that we still see burning throughout the park. But like I said, when we arrived about 35, 40 minutes ago, we saw more fire, more visible fire burning anyway. And here's a good example of how some of the flames jump up into the trees. And you can see that one tree, it's already fairly damaged by the fire, still has a pocket of fire burning in its trunk. Look over here. You can see this hoses that are stretched from the upper portion of the park coming out of the Edgecombe side of the park there, and one of those firefighters down there just pouring more water onto that brush down there. That's the key. Just try to get that brush as wet as possible. Try to take away the fuel. Again, it's been so dry around the tri-state area with such a long period of lack of any type of precipitation whatsoever. Fire risk have been extremely high for several weeks now, and this is what everybody is worried about, of course. It's just trying to keep these dry areas from igniting, and again, with low humidity still prevalent throughout the whole area, just doesn't make it easy for anybody, especially the firefighters trying to get these fires extinguished. Come back over here on the rocks, and you'll see number of firefighters still trying to make sure they contain it in this area, and again, just kind of getting as much water as they can onto those hot spots. You still see some of that smoke coming off of the rocks over here. Again, you have to hand it to these firefighters, these men and women who go into these dry areas trying to get this these brush fires under control. But again, the one here in Highbridge Park is a good example of just how treacherous it is for these men and women as they try to insert themselves into these areas there in any way possible. No trails in a lot of these areas, just having to climb the rugged terrain. And again, especially the firefighters coming off of the Harlem River Drive, having to get up through those broken trees and those rocks, and just trying to get up there and get as much of that fire extinguished as they possibly can. You still see more of the firefighters down here. We saw a number of them come out of the woods not too long ago, Of course, the various pieces of equipment down here just trying to get this fire from every angle they possibly can. And now we look here more on the south side of where this fire originated, or appears to have originated, and you can still see a couple of very thick areas of smoke. Always a little hard to see through that smoke, but you can see just how heavy it is in certain areas. And I should point out, actually, I haven't pointed that out yet, but you can see it does not appear that the residences over here on Edgecombe seem to be threatened by the fire at this time. Everything still seems to be on the cliff side of the park, and there's that tower ladder we were looking at a few minutes ago. Now you see them just showering the area with water, just trying to help as best they can from above. But again, you can see all the fire appears to be contained inside the park, so no structures seem to be in danger at this point. You do have a couple of recreational areas over here within the park. They seem to be safe at this point as well. That's a little bit of good news out of all this, and of course, like I said, right now, no reports of any injuries. But you'll see in a few seconds, there's still a number of ambulances waiting over here by 155th Street, just in case they are needed. See a all set up down there as well. Ambulances over there on the left side of the video. Like I said, folks, we'll stay here for about another 5 minutes, and then we'll go back and get ready for our 5 o'clock newscast. And of course, there will be more coverage on this and the other fires in the area coming up on the CBS News New York, News at 5. But for now, we'll just keep an eye on that smoke as firefighters continue to get a handle on the situation here in Highbridge Park. And of course, something to keep in mind as well, sunset should be at 4:37, so firefighters have to keep that in mind as well. As the sun sets, they'll lose all their light, and it gets a little more treacherous, a little trickier for our firefighters who are climbing these hilly areas here. So the sooner they can get a handle on that, the better it'll be for everybody, of course. Yeah, we see that bit of heavy smoke coming out over here, and it's that one tree. You see a couple of fires that have broken out in that one tree. That's fine. Thanks, Max. And we look inside some of the brush. We see a little more fire burning underneath that tree as well.
This has been breaking news.